Hello everyone and welcome back. Today's video is a collaboration with my friend Mortis Media, and we have some exciting news for you. We have another free giveaway, and one of you will win a mini exclusive signed print of the artwork you see now on screen. You just have to follow these rules in order to participate. You have to subscribe to my channel and to Mortis Media, and also like and comment this video and the first part of our collaboration on Mortis Media channel. The link to Mortis Media video is below and also in the end of this video. The winner will be announced in a week, so stay tuned. But for now guys, grab your flashlight and follow us into the darkness.
I began working at Wendy's in July, and apparently there's a ghost at the one I work at. Now I believe in ghosts, but I didn't believe at all that there would be a ghost there. My co-workers claimed that the Wendy's we worked at was built on ancient burial grounds, which I doubted as well. But now, I believe I have experienced enough unexplained events that it may possibly be haunted. I had gone to get some cheese or something from the cooler and brought it back to my sandwich station. When I returned minutes later, a box was sitting in the middle of the cooler. I know that there are explanations, like maybe someone put it in there. Maybe it was there and I didn't realize it at first, but I know that no other employee had gone into the cooler, because I would have heard the door opening. Also, the box was positioned so that it would have been noticeable the first time I went in. Another possible experience was at night. I was closing like I usually do, with 4 other employees only. We were finishing up. I'm waiting by the manager's office for him to count the money and other things. We were all together, and none of us were off cleaning or anything like that. Then we heard a clicking of something. It was coming from the sink area, which makes sense, because that's where all the pans and knives are. Our manager, a big muscular guy, was terrified and admitted to hearing sounds like most other nights when he's left alone. Now, this final experience I personally had was the scariest thing to me. It was closing time again, and about midnight, I was on back window, which is the worst position ever, and had to clean some dishes and stuff. I was cleaning a grill part when I saw a dark mass behind me. The grill part was silver and somewhat reflective, and I saw this black mass move across the grill part. I turned around to see if anyone was behind me, but no one was. But it doesn't end there. I blew it off, thinking I was either seeing things, or it was as a result of me moving in a different way or something like that. As I finished my dishes, I went back to the back window area to lock my window, and as I was going to do so, I saw in the reflection of the window that there was a black mass behind me. It looked as though it were back near the dish area. I quickly spun around, and it was gone. I told my fellow employees what I saw, and they also shared with me their own stories, such as hearing whispers and seeing things as well. One extreme story was when my boyfriend, who worked with me, had gotten cut by a knife that fell off the rack. You may be thinking, well, that's possible, but then again, the way the knives are hung up make it almost impossible for them to fall down without being moved. They are hooked on through a hole in the handle, and the rack they are hooked onto is bent up at the end. As he was cleaning the back sinks, it fell on his arm. It didn't cut him much because it wasn't that sharp, but still, it scared the ever-loving crap out of him.
This story happened in October of 2004, back when I was still a third-year high school student. My friends and I stuck around the school late at night. After our annual Halloween party, we had agreed to try out my friend's Ouija board. It wasn't the brightest idea, but we needed a thrill. We found a nice spot under a huge tree and proceeded with our ritual. There were 5 of us, 2 boys and 3 girls. We were all expecting some kind of paranormal contact. Rumors had it our school was haunted, but we've never really experienced anything firsthand. And it was Halloween, when all the spirits came out to play. We all wanted to get spooked. Also, we've never seen an Ouija board firsthand before, so we were pretty excited. Our school was an old Spanish colonial house built in the 1800s, when the Spaniards still occupied the Philippines. We were in a section of the school that doesn't get used often, located beside a creepy old house. People only go there when they needed to use the restroom, store equipment on one of the sheds, or make out with their boyfriends or girlfriends. We sat down in the middle of an open space, with only an exposed bare bulb illuminating the surroundings. We were all having a laugh, scaring each other with what-if scenarios. It was your typical dumb kids doing dumb things. My friend who brought the Ouija board proceeded to place it in the middle of our circle. If I remember correctly, it was a glow-in-the-dark version, which we found hilarious, but it gave us the ability to see what was reading in the dark. Not knowing what to do and going after what we've seen in movies, we all proceeded to place our index finger on top of it. We sat there looking at each other until one of us said, "What's next?" We didn't know if there was a proper way to start the ritual, plus the board didn't come with instructions, so we decided to just throw in a question. "Is anyone there?" I called out into the darkness. "If there are spirits living here, please talk to us." One of the girls joined in. We clearly had no idea what we were doing. Still nothing. Not even the slightest bit of wind. One of my friends jerked it off, and the girls who brought the Ouija board screamed, breaking the silence. We all laughed at how ridiculous it was. After a bit of joking around, we decided to give it another go. We all placed our index fingers on it once more and asked, "If there's anyone there, we would like to make a contact." "Don't break the circle," one of my friends jokingly said. "Shut up," I whispered. We were just about ready to give up when the wind started to pick up. The stillness broke and the darkness around us seemed to move. Just a coincidence, we thought. "Okay, don't break the circle," I yelled out. "Is anyone there?" I was excited. It was like a scene from a movie with dirt and dead leaves swirling around us. "Guys, I'm scared," my friend sitting beside me said. "My mom warned me about playing with forces we don't know." "Did you die here? Were you killed during the war? Are you a hottie?" my friend giggled. At this point, we were all throwing random stupid questions. "Nothing. This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore," my friend said. We were all thinking the same. Started barking at us through the chain-link fence. These 6 dogs were growling and showing teeth. We all screamed and without finishing the ritual, bolted right out of there. We didn't see each other until after Halloween, and this is where the story gets creepy. One of the girls told us about a weird experience she had the night after playing with the Ouija board. She had gotten home late after hanging out with her friends, when she realized she forgot the keys to her house. So she called her brother up, who was then still sharing a room with her, and what he said crept the hell out of her. He swore she was already home. He claimed to have seen her walking a while ago, and that she looked really tired and saw her head straight to bed. Creepy, but no need to freak ourselves out, was all we thought. Besides, her brother must have just been tired and saying things. But then my other friend started telling us about an encounter she had that Halloween night. She was going up to her room when the lights started flickering as she was ascending the staircase. Your typical horror movie visuals shrugged it off to faulty wiring. But just then she saw the door to her room open, and a dark figure stepped out and stood atop of the staircase. She couldn't make out the entity's face, but she recounted that she couldn't move and felt utter dread as the figure stared down at her. "No way," my best friend, who had just joined in the conversation, said in disbelief. "Something happened to me as well." He recalled that he was sleeping one night when he woke up feeling really uncomfortable. He described his vision as having TV-like static, and a feeling of heaviness surrounded him. He looked around the room, and that's when he saw a bloody, charred face with piercing red eyes grinning at him through the window. I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I had almost run in with death that night. After the ritual, I was sleeping in our sedan on the way home. When I felt our car jerk, I woke up instantly, looking out the window. I found out that we've been hit by a huge oil tanker. I panicked and leaped out of the car. Luckily, my mom and I survived the crash since the front of the car was a total wreck. I still don't have an explanation why those things happened to us, but thank God nothing happened after that. I never played or gotten near an Ouija board ever since.
I know this is going to sound crazy, and believe you me, it just sounds laughable, but I assure you it's all true. There's a hand following me. Okay, so maybe Manor from Courage the Cowardly Dog and Mother's Hand from Coraline really scared me as a child, and I have even seen nightmares about separated limbs chasing after me to kill me in my dreams. But this isn't just my imagination. It can't be. And it's been following me around for a pretty long time. The first time I saw it I was 5 or 6. My mum told me and my sister good night and left our bedroom with the door open. And there was a light in the hallway because my little sister was scared of the dark. And I wasn't about to complain about it. I closed my eyes to sleep. But that night, I didn't feel tired. I tossed and turned around pointlessly in bed, and at one point I opened my eyes and my gaze landed on the doorway. There was a hand there. It was just there, peeking out from the side of the door. I thought it was my mother playing some kind of trick, so I tried to call her without showing that she was scaring me, as I had a real fear of witches at the time, and I was secretly afraid that this was one. Then I blinked, and the hand was gone. My mother still came to see what the fuss was about, so I was really glad I'd called her, because it confirmed I hadn't dreamt what I saw before. For some reason, I can't remember if I told her about it, but I have a feeling that I did not. Maybe I was ashamed of being scared, or something that maybe wasn't real. Did I imagine it? When I was about 10, we moved to a different house and I slept alone. That night, I had a really bad nightmare, and when I woke up, I saw something pressed up against my Velux window. I swear it had the shape of a flattened hand, but then it just kind of flopped off. When I told my mother about it next morning, she told me that it was probably a bat. A few months later, I found a handprint in our bathroom window when the place was filled up with mist after my sister's shower. I know it would sound stupid, but I asked her if it was her, and, well, it wasn't. It was too big to be my mum's. It looked more like a man's hand, and I have no idea why a hand would try to leave a handprint on a mirror. But if it is real, then there's probably no real reason. I mean, it's just a hand. It appeared again in a nightmare as well. I'm not sure if it was a nightmare or if I was half awake, but I was in my bedroom in the nightmare. And it was exactly the same as my real bedroom. I heard something scuttle on the ground, and my brain decided it had to be a gigantic spider because it was making a lot of noise. And I was scared to look over the bed because I hate spiders. But then my brain told me that spiders probably didn't exist around here at that size, so I ended up looking. The scuttling stopped the exact moment I started moving, and I saw the hand. It was half hidden by the darkness of my room, but it was completely still and right next to my bed. I think I wanted to scream, but I didn't. That's why I'm not sure if it was real, because I felt frozen, and when I blinked, it was gone. Just like the time I saw it in the doorway when I was little. Until then, I could tell myself it was just some kind of phobia I had or something. I didn't know that it could have been a product of my imagination, or something freaky genuinely happening. You know that moment when you take a shower, and you have to close your eyes to wash your face? Well, I was doing that, and I felt something touch me on my left thigh. And I didn't see anything when I opened my eyes. At first I thought it was the shower hose that had somehow grazed against my skin while I was moving, but it was no way near me. I felt really uncomfortable. Something was in the shower with me and touched me, and I don't know what. And I sure hope it's not what I think it is, because just how could that be possible? But I'm creeped out, and honestly hope I'm being delusional. What if it touched me before when I was sleeping? How can I be sure it's the first time it's ever touched me? Why is it following me? Is it even real? I know this sounds like nothing compared to the horrors that people have to tell, but I'm sure I can't have imagined that physical contact because it felt real. It honestly was very scary, and I don't know what to do. What do you do when there's a ghost hand following you?
In one corner of my grandma's living room stood a lamp that was almost never turned off. She would change the bulb every week like clockwork, waiting until the afternoon sunlight poured through the windows and filled the room. Even then she hurried, holding her breath, until the deed was done and the lamp was back on. I would ask her about it once in a while. Each time she would smile softly, tassel my hair, and promptly change the subject. I didn't learn the truth until I was 13, the first time I turned off the lamp. I just wanted to see what would happen, Grandma screamed when she walked into the darkened living room, a plate of cookies falling from her hands and crashing to the floor. I could hear her praying under her breath as she raced to turn the light back on. Tears were shining in her eyes when she turned to me, her lips pressed thin. Without warning, she slapped me across the face. Grandma has never so much as raised her voice before, and I was too shocked to cry. She cried enough for both of us, gathering me up in her hands and begging me for my forgiveness. With her face buried in my shoulder, she finally told me about the lamp. It was a ghost light, she said. Ever since she and my grandpa had bought the house, back when they first arrived in America, the spirits of the dead had plagued her. Only when her burden threatened to drive her mad did she ask Grandpa for help. She had expected him to laugh her out of the house, but he had surprised her by nodding gravely. It was he who had first lit the ghost light, and as long as that beacon burned through the darkness, she had never seen another spirit. I stopped visiting my grandma after that. It started gradually at first, missing a day here and there, but by the time I received news of her death, I hadn't seen her in over 10 years. As her only living relative, I shouldn't have been surprised when I inherited the house. Yet, as I sat in her lawyer's office, listening to him read her will, I was speechless. I had a difficult time paying attention after that, absorbed as I was with the business of remembering. So much love had filled those walls, so many happy memories. As I thought of my tiny, sterile apartment in the city, I quickly made my decision. I was almost overwhelmed by emotion as I walked through the front door. Everything looked exactly as I remembered it from my childhood. Houseplants still cluttered the window sills. Decorative bird plates still hung on the walls, and the ghost light still burned in the living room. Seeing the old lamp sent a chill down my spine. I froze in my tracks, the smile fading from my lips, and I couldn't help but think of the night Grandma had slapped me so many years ago. I had told my mother about the ghost light the next day, but she had dismissed it as simple old-world superstition. It was the same way when she was growing up, she told me, and I shouldn't worry about it. Still, I couldn't shake the conviction that I had finally seen the true depths of my grandma's lunacy. I ran my fingers through the fringe on the lampshade, as I thought, a bloom of sadness darkening my nostalgia. Sighing heavily, I turned the ghost light off with a click. Something woke me later that night. I lay in bed, listening to the darkness, until I heard scratching coming from the living room. Rats were the last thing I wanted to deal with at the moment, and I rolled over with a groan, determined to ignore it until the morning. The scratching continued, constantly jerking me off from the edge of sleep, and I finally had enough. I threw the blankets off me and stormed out into the hall. Moonlight flooded the front of the house, and I didn't bother turning on lights as I made my way to the living room. I knew every inch of the house, even after so many years, and I moved confidently through the dim light. I was furious at having been woken from a dead sleep, and my anger prepared me for what I found. An elderly woman was crouched in the corner, her gaunt back to me. She was scratching at the floor where the holes met, stopping every few minutes to cock her head. A gnarl of dread unfurled in the pit of my stomach. I had no idea how this woman had gotten into my house, and though it was obvious she needed help, it took me some time to summon the courage to approach her. My hand shook as I reached out to gently squeeze her shoulder. I meant to ask her where she lived, who her caretaker was, but the words were driven from my mind when she turned and I saw her face. Her eyes were solid black, bottomless pits that didn't reflect the moonlight. Her jaw hung impossibly open, unhinged, and the dark tunnel of her mouth spiraled down into her throat. I had a moment to realize who she was, to recognize the familiar map of wrinkles in her face, the curls of her wispy hair. Then my grandma screamed. I shrieked, stumbling backwards away from the nightmare in the corner. My arms flayed in the air, reaching for the nearest lamp, and my hands touched the ghost light. I yanked the chain, filling the room with light, and she was gone. I never turned off the ghost light after that. After letting the bulb burn out one evening, I began changing it every week, just as Grandma had. Eventually I got married, and luckily for me, my wife was tolerant of my strange fixation of the lamp. The light continued to burn, and I lived my life happily enough. But my grandson has been asking about the ghost light lately. Each time he asks, I smile softly, touch his hair, and promptly change the subject. For some reason, I can't bring myself to tell him the truth. I think about how I pulled away from my grandma, how I thought her crazy, and I keep my mouth shut. I worry though. I know I won't be around forever, just as I know he will eventually turn off the ghost light. I worry that he might see me then, twisted and wrong, scratching in the corner. We had recently moved into a new house. It was relatively cheap, and just below our asking price. We were happy to finally have a home of our own. I admit, it wasn't our dream home, and it needed some work from the outside, but the inside, this place was great. Everything was new. Still had some furniture from the previous owners, sort of like old-timey furniture. No more living at my parents' house. We busted our asses and saved for a couple of years, and we were ecstatic when we hit our goal. Just when we thought we were in the clear to buy this house, a new buyers swooped in and made a counter-offer for the home. Unfortunately, we were outbid by a long shot. We didn't even have enough cash to counter-offer. I admit I was mad for a week, because again, we had to do the whole shit of looking for another home. A month had passed, and we really didn't think about it anymore. If the house wasn't for us, then it wasn't meant to be, right? But about a couple weeks later, the other buyers backed out suddenly. The realtor, who was a nice old woman, was eager to give us a call. The house was available, and it was even cheaper than our first offer. At first, we were kind of confused by this. But when we met the realtor at the house again, we immediately fell in love with the house. The inside had been updated. This threw us off. All this work had put in this whole upgrade, which had probably cost more than the house. Why was it so cheap? We kept asking. What was the catch? No catch, she told us. The people that outbid us were wealthy, and they wanted to try their hand at flipping the house, but lost interest and took the loss. They had money to burn, so it didn't phase them out. She admitted that there was still work to be done to the house, and that she really liked us and really wanted to give it to us. She gave us a tour again to try and convince us. We already knew what our answer was, but we wanted her to squirm a little for the headache she gave us before. We went room to room, planning out what each room would be. Like yuppies, she opened the door to the room next to the master bedroom, which we planned on making our baby's room. But she was off-put by something when she opened the door. In the center of the room was a baby crib. She stared at it as we walked in the empty space around it. She seemed to have spaced out and stood at the edge of the doorway. We were talking to her, but no response. She eventually snapped out of it and began to mumble some words. We asked if she was all right. Was there anything wrong? She said, No. I was just thinking about something. I'm sorry. It's just that I could have sworn I took the crib out. I must be getting old. Me and my wife didn't give a shit about what she said. We just kept smiling at one another about the price of the house. We said fuck it, and we moved in a week later after all the paperwork was done. My wife has some vacation days, so she was some time off of work to arrange the house. So she said, every day I came home, I saw the same boxes sitting there. I just don't know where to put these things. We had our bedroom finished and the kitchen done, but the living room was still full of the old furniture we planned on throwing away. But in the meantime, while our new couches were being delivered, so we used them. Our first weekend in our new home had arrived. Since I don't work on weekends, I made it my duty to put up the shelves, put our bed frames, basically do everything, while we had dropped off our son at my parents' place so we could set up his new room and clean the house and make it baby safe. All the while my wife made a big family-style dinner to celebrate with my parents included. My parents arrived around 6:30. They had not seen the house yet, so we were eager to show them. Like most parents, they pointed out everything wrong. My mom mentioned some shit about how the house looked so familiar, but couldn't place it. Maybe it was in a movie. Anyways, I don't like it. It's a fixer-upper. But when they stepped inside, they were impressed. They shut my parents up. My wife carried our son around the house on the outside. He's a baby. He doesn't care, take him inside. But she told me to shut up, so I did. She walked up the stairs and walked down the hallway, and I opened the door to show the baby his new room. Immediately he started crying, like screaming his baby lungs out. I assumed something was wrong, and I ran up the stairs quickly along with my parents in pursuit. She said, I don't know, I just came in here and he started crying like crazy and he won't stop. Here, let me take him. My mom grabbed him and she left the room and he stopped crying suddenly. She used this as a way to be snobby and act like she's a better mom like moms do. My wife didn't mind it much. She saw his as a chance to get dinner ready. All right, let's go to the dining room. My wife made the best dinner I've ever had that night. My dad complimented her cooking, especially her meatball soup. This made my mom a little jealous, and we all laughed. It's because she was in your kitchen. The rest of the night was great. My parents took off and we cleaned up. We sat down in our living room, watching reruns of The Office. All while, my son played in the crib on the side of us. For old couches, these old ones were comfortable. I didn't mind if we kept them. My wife said no. She managed to get the name of the brand of the site. She looked it up and this old-style couch was like $50,000. This is some baller couch, but this belonged to Queen Victoria or something. I started to roast the couch with dumb sayings. My wife and I went back and forth laughing at whoever bought this ugly couch for that much. But with all seriousness, she said she wanted to sell it. All the furniture was the same style, so she went around looking for the same brand name, and she was correct. They were all from the same company, sold in set. She found the set, which was worth around $30,000 in total. I called out bullshit. No way all this is worth that much. It's probably all knockoffs. That's why they were left here. Well, it could be because they're heavy. I agreed. Earlier, when I tried to lift the couch up, I nearly broke my back, and any attempt to slide it on the wooden floor would scrape the new varnish, so I left it in place. I still doubted the value. She made her surprise discovery when she saw that the set came with a baby crib, and the crib alone was $5,000. I can move that with ease. I was spinning the crib all day in the room. She said she wanted to keep it. I don't know about baby cribs, but she kept going on and on about the quality of it and how she liked it. Now, my son has been up all day. Usually, he knocked right out, but he was so energetic tonight with his toys. So my wife grabbed him and took him to his room upstairs to try and put him to sleep. I told her to keep him downstairs so we can keep an eye on him. I am a new father, so I am protective. More so than my wife. I put like 2 layers of clothes on him when I feel a slight breeze. I don't let no one hold him unless I've watched them. I've had trouble with my overprotectiveness with my wife, but he's a baby and I worry. Now I'm more cooled down. You know, I might sound like a psycho, but that's my son, right? So she walks up the stairs. I can hear her going down the hallway. She opens the door and again he starts crying like crazy. I ran up the stairs like the Flash and bust the door open. She's staring at me as she's rocking him and putting him down into the crib. And she's like, "Why are you running for? You scared me. You just fell asleep in a whispered voice." I heard him screaming and crying. He hasn't cried, he is sleeping, my wife told me. My bad. I peer off the crib and I see that he's fine. He's sleeping peacefully. You sure he wasn't crying? I swear I heard him crying like earlier. You're just tired and your memories are messing with you. She turns on the baby monitor that has a camera. The other one is in the living room. We go back downstairs and she reassures me he's fine. "Let's go," she said. Fine. We laughed all night. Every now and then I'd hear the baby move on the monitor and I would stare at the little screen making sure he was okay. My wife laughed every time I did, saying I was too much. I would go up every episode to use the bathroom, but secretly I would go and check up on him. My wife said she can see me on the monitor. I got caught. "If he wakes up, you're gonna have to put him back to bed." "I've been doing that all day, so you have the night shift tonight." "Fine, I'll stop," I said. My wife fell asleep next to me on the couch. I kept watching TV, so it was around 12 a.m. I went to grab a beer from the fridge, but I forgot to bring some in. So I went to the garage. I knew I was on graveyard shift for some reason. Beers wakes me up instead of making me sleepy. So I grabbed 3 and put them in the fridge. And when I went to the living room again, my wife was gone. I looked around and I heard her upstairs. She replied from the baby monitor, "Are you deaf? You woke up." I was in the garage. I lost track of time. I apologized. She was right. She came back downstairs, put the office back on, and I was watching it. My wife went to the restroom. He began to cry again. He kicked it off again. I could see on the monitor. I went upstairs and rocked him. He wouldn't go back to sleep. Eventually, he did after a bottle. You know what? He can sleep downstairs. I'll just put him in the downstairs crib when she falls asleep again. Midway through the episode, she fell asleep again. I forgot to mention this, but the baby monitor is split screen, one with a view of the room and the other above the crib. So I sneak upstairs and I grab my son and come back downstairs. I place him in the crib. I cover him up and I change my sitting position so I'm right next to him. My wife wakes up confused, wondering why I'm moving. I told her my ass hurt from sitting there I wanted to move. She fell back asleep. I wanted to finish up the rerun of the hockey game, so I turned the TV down and kept an eye on my wife, and kid feeling so lucky to have them. I would get up to grab a beer and pee quickly, just in case my son woke up. The game was almost over. All the lights were off, and I was ready to go to bed. I locked the doors, made sure the windows were closed, and that the alarm was on, and I sat back down. Now, I started to hear movement upstairs. Directly above the dining room is the master bedroom, which is adjacent from me. My house is quiet, so I assume the floor is just creaking. It stops. Then I hear it again. I turn on the staircase light and the hallway, and then my bedroom light. Nothing was there. To me, it sounded like something was walking. I clear the rooms and walk back downstairs. I leave the lights on because I'm gonna go to bed already. I'm just tired, and now I'm hearing shit. I finished my beer. The Kings won, and it's now 1:20 a.m. I go to the restroom and walk back to the living room. My wife is sitting up and said the baby is crying again. Go get him. Why did you leave the lights on in the hallway? Oh, I went upstairs. Go get him, he's crying. Now I can hear crying on the baby monitor. I have accidentally dropped a blanket over the camera when I went to get him. I tell her the baby's right there. I point to the crib. She looks over and hears they're sleeping. I hear the crying too, and we're both scared because it's coming from the monitor. I make the camera that covers the room bigger, but the light in my son's room is off. I never turned it off. So now it's night vision, and there's like a shadow over the crib, almost like a person, but there's no outline around him, like it fades into the darkness. We both see this, and my instincts kick in, and I tell my wife to grab our son and to go to the garage, get into the car, lock it, and go outside. I look at the monitor again, and he's moved closer to the corner of the room. Then he jumps in front of the camera. I must have pressed the microphone button when I got it. Now whoever it is heard me. I grab a bat from the box and made my way up. My heart's racing, but I don't care. Midway through the hallway, I can hear a baby crying and something whispering to it. This sense of dread overcame me. Something wasn't right. Before I reached the door, it slammed closed. I backed up, and all I could think of was my family. My family's outside. That's where I need to be, protecting them, not protecting my house. That's what the police are for. I ran downstairs out the garage to the car and hopped in. Call the police. Already ahead of you. They're on their way. Like I said, she's my partner. The cops come and we tell them someone's in the house. It's like 4 of them. They clear the house. Nothing. Nothing stolen. Nothing opened. Not a door or a window, nothing. The cops look at us like we're high or something. We know what we saw. We know what we heard. There's something in the house. The alarm didn't go off. There's no signs of entry. If you want, we can get a dog and do a thorough search. Do whatever you gotta do. They bring a dog. It's like 2:30 now. I'm tired. My wife is tired. The neighbors are being nosy. My parents came and we're just sitting in the car in our sleepwear. The cops come back outside with the dog. The guy holding the dog's leash is confused as to why the dog's acting up. I assumed they found someone. They came to us and said no. The dog started going upstairs and led us to the child's room, and he suddenly started to bark before we could even go inside. We checked the room and we saw nothing. Carl said he's never seen his dog do that. Me and my wife, along with my parents, are confused. You can go back inside. It's safe. We did all we can. I mean, you guys didn't move into a murderer's house. Wait, what? My wife said out loud. Yeah, the address has a history of domestic violence in the system hands. That's why we came in a hurry, with extra police and a dog. The last police call to the address was a murder-homicide in 2016. But this house has a history. I knew this house was familiar, my mom yelled. This is the house where the family died, and they didn't find them inside for a month. And then the neighbor called the police for a warfare check. They were dead on the couch, even the kids in the room. She loved to be right. We never went back. A moving company went for our stuff. They said the couches and crib were extra. I told them to leave them there.